Hola a todos, buenos días y bienvenidos otra vez aquí al podcast de Aprende Más Inglés, el mejor podcast de todo el mundo mundial para aprender inglés. Hoy tengo algo un poco diferente para compartir contigo porque poca gente lo sabe, pero hago otro podcast en inglés. Un podcast que es 100% en inglés y que habla de la vida en España. Se llama Spain to Go y tiene más de 100 capítulos. Llevo unos 5 años en ello y no es tan conocido como el podcast de Aprende Más Inglés, pero tiene su público ahí en Estados Unidos, Australia, Países Bajos, Alemania, etc. Países con mucha gente que habla y entiende inglés y que tiene interés por la vida en España. Esta semana en el podcast de Spain to Go he grabado un capítulo sobre las tradiciones navideñas en España y quería compartirlo contigo. Haré un enlace fácil, aprendemasingles.com/398. Eso te lleva a mi otra página web que también es en inglés y sobre la vida en España. Pero el enlace es sencillo para estar todos en la misma página, aprendemasingles.com/398. Ahí tienes el texto, que no es exactamente lo que vas a escuchar aquí, pero casi. Así sin más, disfruta del podcast de Spain to Go. Muchas gracias por escuchar y hasta pronto. Tendré un par de capítulos más antes del día de Navidad, pero ¡Feliz Navidad a todos! Vamos allá con el capítulo Spanish Christmas Traditions del podcast de Spain to Go. Christmas is in the air. Are you ready? It's time to talk about some holiday traditions from here in Spain because things can be a little bit different. So if you're ready to get into the holiday spirit, and you're new to Spain or thinking about moving here at some future point, you might be a bit lost navigating the local Christmas traditions. I am here to help. Today, we're going to talk about 8 Spanish holiday traditions that will help you celebrate Christmas like a local. Some of them might surprise newcomers or first-time visitors, but don't worry, it'll be fun for the whole family. And now, with less blackface. Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to Spain to Go, the best podcast in the entire multiverse for all things Spain. Today is going to be a bit of a different type of episode. I wrote this article a long time ago. I want to say probably 10 years ago. This morning I realized I had never recorded it as a podcast, so here goes. Anyway, the caveat is that 10 years ago I was writing these sort of simple list post style articles. The internet was different back then, and, I was a younger and more fun person. So I wrote a lot of things like this. This is a bit of a departure from my tone of late, but it also might be interesting to people who are living in Spain or hoping to move here soon. Before we continue, shout out to Dino. Dino has donated to the podcast over at expatmadrid.com/donate. Dino is also known as Dean. He says, "Been listening to you on and off over the years. We are grateful for your help with all things Spain. Happy birthday." That is from Dean and Sandy. Following up, I believe they lived between Australia and New Zealand, and they sometimes come to Spain as well. Anyway, thank you, Dean and Sandy. I appreciate the donation. If you would like to donate, you can go over to expatmadrid.com/donate. Send some support my way. Anything from €3 on up is fine. expatmadrid.com/donate. I will give you a shout out in a future episode. Thank you very much. Back to those Spanish Christmas traditions. Let's talk about number 1. They celebrate Black Friday now, and it's 4 days long or more. Black Friday's expansion in the US has not gone unnoticed by savvy Spanish marketers, But in a country that doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving, it's a bit of a mystery why Black Friday is catching on to this degree. The other mystery is, why is it a 4 or 5 day event in many stores? I assume that almost everybody understands enough English at this point to realize that Friday is only one day. But Black Friday sales in Spain can just as easily be all weekend, from Thursday to Sunday or even longer. I guess they're technically lumping Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and all the rest into a single event, celebrated more or less around US Thanksgiving. They also have these displays of Christmas lights in major Spanish cities, and probably the minor ones too. What do I know? Those light displays usually start around the Thanksgiving holiday. It might be the day after or something similar. In recent years, Vigo out in Galicia has had one of the biggest Christmas trees all lit up in their city center. I love Vigo. If you have a chance to go out there, please do. But the fame created by the Vigo Christmas tree and the tourism generated, I guess, has led to a sort of competition between Spanish cities for light displays. So now we're doing that. Anyway, if you are in a city center, it's bound to be pretty nice. Back to the topic of Black Friday. This has been going on for at least several years, so I guess it works. And Spain has one of the fastest growing economies among major world players, at least allegedly. And I assume that an important part of that is a growing population just going out to buy stuff. If you'd like to hear much more about the growing Spanish economy, episode 99 is about an article in The Economist, I believe, that said that Spain has the world's best economy. I take that with a bit of a grain of salt, but it's worth looking into anyway. Episode 99. This year in Barcelona, it seems like everybody is doing Black Friday. Even my local pharmacy has some discounts and Black Friday decorations up on the windows. But let's move on. Number 2 are the crazy crowds in the city center. In the evenings and on weekends, the city center is packed all through the holiday season. This applies in Madrid and Barcelona, and probably some other Spanish downtown areas. Some days you'll have to elbow your way through massive crowds, and you should definitely hang on tight to your wallet and other valuables at all times. I've heard that pickpockets from around Europe come to Spain to work the holiday season. There is definitely an issue with pickpockets, at least in the bigger cities. Episode 64 is about the pickpocket problem here in Barcelona. Madrid has a famous animatronic light display called Cortilandia on the backside of the Corte Inglés in Sol. That's always the craziest crowd. I used to work right around the corner from there, and it was insane. Here in Barcelona, I believe that they do a Cortilandia type thing out on the Corte Inglés on Diagonal. That's all the way across town from me, and I don't really go out there very often, so I'm not sure, but it's a nice area of town, and I'm sure the Christmas decorations generally are pretty fancy out there. It's quite an experience and not for the agoraphobic. The craziest crowd of all is on New Year's Eve in Puerta del Sol. That's where they do the, equivalent to the Times Square New Year's celebration in the US. There in Puerta del Sol, they have the bell inside the big Comunidad de Madrid building, and it's a huge party. One thing you may not know is that the night before, they do a simulacro. They actually test the bell at midnight on December 30th, and people come out for that too. I went to that once. It was very, very crowded also. I've never been to the official Puerta del Sol New Year's Eve because I just do not like big parties that much. But you're welcome to let me know in the comments what you think if you end up at something like that. Let's move on to holiday tradition number 3, the Spanish national obsession with turrón and shellfish. Back in the day, there only used to be 2 types of turrón. There was hard and soft. In English, turrón is praline, and we're basically talking about a rectangular block of sugar with almonds in the middle of it. It is cooked to varying degrees and could have other flavors. The varieties these days seem endless. You can get chocolate turron, you can get watermelon turron. There's also similar. Look around at your local supermarket. You can find all kinds of things. For a boutique version, you might have a local bakery, pasteleria, or something similar that makes an artisanal turron. You could check out, if you're in Madrid, Casa Mira at Carrer de San Jerónimo number 30. That's been there since 1842. There are probably pretty good turron options in other Spanish cities. I don't eat a lot of sugar, so I am not quite the expert. The origin of turron, similar to marzipan, is apparently Moorish. I guess the Moors used to grow a lot of almonds, and so we have these almond-based desserts. Another option is mantecados and the similar sweet polvorones. Those are lard-based, and they have a little bit of sugar and a lot of flour. I don't think they're all that amazing. They're from Andalusia. Probably a lot of people grew up with them, and so they enjoy them for that reason. Those will also be in your local supermarket, probably sold by the kilo. Being lard-based, they are not suitable for vegetarians or vegans if that's what you're into, so be careful there. The other thing that Spaniards go wild about at this time of year is shellfish. Prawns especially. If you go to your local pescaderia between now and mid-January, be prepared to wait behind a long line of abuelas buying prawns in various colors and sizes. Why prawns specifically? I have no idea, but you might want to brush up on your seafood vocabulary before the holidays start. Over on my YouTube channel, Learn Spanish with Daniel, I have a whole episode about Spanish seafood vocabulary. You can check that out if you would like. Also, episode 11 of this podcast is Christmas vocabulary. I've got quite a bit over there as well that will help you out. Episode 11 of this very podcast. Next up, we have Christmas lottery madness. You've surely heard something about the Christmas lottery here in Spain. If you've been to Madrid's city center anytime in November or December, you've also seen the long lines stretching out from Doña Manolita and El Doblón de Oro, two of the most important lottery offices. People come from all over Spain to buy tickets from these lucky establishments. I've explained some of the bad math in an article on the blog, but of course it's a big tradition and the social pressure is high. Basically, your barber, your local bar, the people at your office, they are all playing the same numbers. And if they win and you don't, it's going to be quite embarrassing. Ask your Spanish friends how many tickets they and the people in their family have bought this year. It can be an interesting and enlightening conversation. Also, prepare for most of the country to shut down on the morning of December 22nd as everybody listens to the kids sing out the winning numbers on TV and the radio. The historic orphanage Colegio de San Ildefonso in Madrid provides the kids, and the drawing is done at the Teatro Real, otherwise known as the Opera Building. And the kids sing the winning numbers as well as the prizes. It's quite an event, very typical, very Spanish. If you're not here, just look up Loteria de Navidad on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll find something. If you're looking for lottery tickets here in Catalonia, the two most famous places in Barcelona are El Gato Negro on Carrer de Pelai, which is near Plaza Catalunya, and Loteria Valdez at Rambla number 88. That's the, La Rambla, the typical Rambla downtown. There's also a famous place called La Bruja d'Or. This is La Bruja de Oro, the Golden Witch, or the Witch of Gold, I guess. Let's say the Golden Witch. That is in the town of Sort, which is way out in the Lleida province. I have never been out there, but apparently people go. It's got a reputation for being lucky. It's possible that these days lottery tickets can just be delivered to your mobile phone from anywhere, so you could take a look there. I bet in any case that there is a certain something about standing in line for physical lottery tickets that is part of the charm of this tradition. Next up, number 5, we have the 12 grapes on New Year's Eve. At New Year's Eve in the US, the story usually begins and ends with drinking champagne or something similar and positioning yourself next to someone you would like to kiss as the clock strikes 12. That is, if you're celebrating at a party for single people. I think I did that maybe once in my life back in the US. Well, there's not a lot of kissing here in Spain. Everyone's too busy stuffing their mouth with grapes. Also, you tend to celebrate New Year's Eve with your family, so you're probably not kissing your family members with too much enthusiasm. In any case, like I said, the tradition is to put a grape in your mouth with every ring of the clock, every time the bell rings, which it will, of course, do 12 times at midnight. You put a grape in your mouth, and by the end, you have 12 grapes in your mouth, which might be slightly dangerous. Don't choke. These days in supermarkets, you can get the grapes pre-peeled and bagged, which might make this whole thing a bit easier. They also have started breeding seedless grapes in Spain. Anyway, the tradition of las 12 uvas dates back many decades to at least the beginning of the 20th century. One theory about its origin says that there was a late and extra large harvest of grapes in Alicante one year, and they invented the tradition in order to get rid of the overstock. I don't know. It's a debate going on among historians of Spanish folklore. Finally, let's move on to blackface. I mentioned that there was going to be a blackface controversy here. This is number 6, La Cabalgata de los Reyes. On the afternoon and evening of January 5th, most cities and towns hold a cabalgata, a sort of parade with floats, perhaps some camels, and of course the three kings. Parents often take their kids to see the spectacle, and the kings throw candy to the crowd. In Madrid, the route usually goes from Nuevos Ministerios to the city hall at Cibeles, starting around 6:30 p.m. You can look up Cabalgata de Reyes in your local area as well. There might be a similar party on the neighborhood level. I think here in Barcelona there's a neighborhood Cabalgata in my area, as well as the official citywide cabalgata in the center. Probably depends. Anyway, this has been controversial over the last few years because usually what has historically happened is that they paint up a local politician in blackface to represent King Baltasar, the Babylonian king of the three biblical magi. This is not a story that received any emphasis when I was growing up in, the US. We did not talk about the biblical magi very much. But the three kings, or the biblical magi, there's one from Europe, one from Asia, and one from Africa. The African one is Baltasar, and like I said, he was usually played by a local Spanish politician. In other words, some white guy who would paint his face black and parade through town. These days, of course, Spain is much more multicultural than that, and in a lot of places, but not all, the local politician in blackface has been replaced with an actual black person. I just read an article from Sevilla suggesting that this year King Baltasar was going to be played once again by a white guy in blackface, which was being denounced by different organizations. Like I said, it is controversial. And the article I read was from July, so it's very possible that things have changed since then. So if you're visiting the parade on January 5th in a Spanish city or town, I can't guarantee that you will see blackface. I also cannot guarantee that you won't. If you are a big spender, you might be able to rent a hotel suite overlooking these parades. Back in the day, Madrid had Hotel Miguel Angel right on La Castellana near Gregorio Marañón that would rent out suites for the night so that people could have parties overlooking the parade. Check your local area for availability. Talking about Los Reyes, let's get to number 7 here. The three kings are bigger than Santa. There's actually a bitter debate raging in many Spanish families. Should we celebrate the Three Kings or Santa Claus? Santa Claus or the Three Kings? Kids, of course, are happy to celebrate both. More holidays means more presents, and I'm sure the shops don't mind the extra business either. The traditional thing is to celebrate the kings on January 5th and 6th. It's based, like I said, on the story of the biblical Magi, who brought gifts to baby Jesus. These days, the kings bring gifts into Spanish homes. Often a family will leave out water for the camels and wine and sweets for the kings. Santa Claus traditionally comes in through the fireplace, but most Spanish people live in flats with no fireplace, so the kings come in through the window. A lot of people, like I said, are also celebrating a Santa Claus Christmas on December 24th or 25th. Some people like to complain that this is more American influence. I don't know. Everybody's seen the US Christmas movies at this point. I'm sure there's some genre of Spanish Christmas movies, but I don't know much about it. If you have a favorite Spanish Christmas movie, let me know in the comments. Anyway, if you look into the history of the Christmas holiday, what we do now is not exactly a 1,000-year-old tradition. It's maybe a 100-year-old tradition. But I'm guessing that whatever Spanish people are assuming are their 1,000-year-old traditions are nothing of the kind also. That is probably a story for another time. Last year, some people I know were debating whether or not to celebrate the Three Kings with their kids because, as proud Republicans in the Spanish sense, meaning that they do not believe in the monarchy, they thought that their kids might get the wrong idea from the celebration of the Three Kings, that actually monarchies were a good thing. Wrapping up today, we have number 8. The 8th Spanish tradition that you should know about is the fact that the holidays never seem to end. The crowds in the center and the shopping areas don't end at Christmas or at New Year's. In fact, 2 weeks after Christmas Day, when everybody back in the US has already forgotten about the whole thing, Spain is still celebrating with Roscón de Reyes, that's the ring cake that they eat on January 6th, and with more cava, more turrón, and more prawns. Kids usually go back to school and work starts up again on January 7th, or sometimes even the 8th, depending on the holiday schedule in your region that year. That's about all I've got today. For a simple list post, that certainly did take longer than I was expecting to record. Head over to expatmadrid.com for all of the rest. Here we've got, as usual, links to a lot more about life in Spain. You can hit up the donate page, expatmadrid.com/donate. You can send me a message through my contact form. Actually, probably even easier, just find me on Instagram and send me a message there. I'm at Daniel Welsh on Instagram. You can look for me on YouTube. I am Learn Spanish with Daniel over there, and I have over 100 videos at this point for people wanting to learn Spanish. Also, I have every episode of the podcast up there, so check that out. Support for this podcast, as usual, comes from Walks Tours. Go to expatmadrid.com/walks and check out what they've got over there. They have walking tours of incredible locations around Europe. For example, the Prado Museum in Madrid, Sagrada Familia here in Barcelona. These tours are about 10 steps above what you're thinking for the normal walking tours. Just check it out at the website expatmadrid.com/walks. That's an affiliate link, and I get a bit of a commission if you sign up for something. They're also friends of mine, and I like them. You could also check out Devour Tours. That's expatmadrid.com/devour. They have food tours around Europe, and I think even in New York City at this point. Madrid, Barcelona, Sevilla, and San Sebastian, I think, are the main places here in Spain. Anyway, you can look at the full catalog of locations at expatmadrid.com/devour, DEVOUR. That was started by my friend Lauren a long time ago, and it's become a huge international thing. They also have some locations in Italy, France, I believe, and elsewhere in Europe. My friend Raul over at biketourinspain.com has supported this podcast quite a bit. I've been on 2 bike tours with his company. check out the bike tour of Extremadura if you would like. That is episode 94. There's also Don Quixote, the route of Don Quixote, which is episode 76. Check those two out if you're interested in cycling holidays, or just head over to biketourinspain.com. Make sure you use that exact URL, biketourinspain.com, because there are other similar companies out there, similar names. Anyway, tell Raul if you sign up for something that you heard about him from Daniel on the Spain to Go podcast. He will appreciate it. Once again, that's Raul at biketourinspain.com. He has tours from Madrid to Valencia, he has Extremadura, he has La Rioja, and he has the route of Don Quixote. And he's always out there on his bike planning out new routes. So there might be other ones I have not yet heard about. biketourinspain.com. That's about all I've got for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Have a Feliz Día de Reyes. Gracias por escuchar desde la hermosa ciudad de Barcelona. Hasta la próxima.